Hey gang, welcome to Virtual eFest 2020. I'm so sorry we missed you at Real eFest, that we didn't actually get to go and compete, but this is the next best thing, and so I hope this is good. Maybe we learned something here today. If you don't know me, my name is Dr. Jeff Hansen. This is my email address, j.hansen@ttu.edu. Feel free to email me with any questions you have about what we're going to talk about today, or just drop me a line. I am a lecturer and instructor at Texas Tech University in the Department of Mechanical Engineering, and many of you know me from YouTube. I have a channel on YouTube. It's under my name, Jeff Hansen, and I teach students all around the world: statics, solids, thermodynamics, algebra. We have all kinds of lessons on YouTube, so many of you have seen me there. And you may be asking yourself, how did I get here? How do you become a university professor from the time you graduated university to doing this? Did you just go straight through or what? So I want to tell you about my journey and how I got there, and maybe how that could influence your path if this is something that you want to think about. So the name of this presentation is My Journey, so I hope you enjoy this. So you go to university to study to be an engineer. Why in the world would you do that? What motivated you to be an engineer? Was it money? I mean, come on, honestly. You probably had some high school counselor or some teacher that said, hey, you're good at math, you're good at science, you ought to be an engineer. They make a lot of money. Well, that's true. Are your parents engineers? Is your mom or dad an engineer? Is your uncle an engineer? Do you have some kind of family influence that made you want to be an engineer? Did you take some kind of placement test? I know when I was in school, they used to give you a test, and you take that and they tell you, you ought to be a fireman. But maybe you took that and it said you ought to be an engineer. So what's your motivation for doing this? It ought to be because it's something you're interested in, that you love doing. Or do you like just taking things apart and seeing how they worked and problem solving? Such as the little cars you used to get when you were a kid, and you'd pull them back 6 inches and let them go, and they'd go all the way across the room. How in the world does that thing go that far on such just a little bit of, storage of energy there? I want to know what's inside of this thing. That was me. So why did I choose to become an engineer? When I originally went to university, I thought, I want to be rich. I'm going to make a lot of money. And so who makes the most money? I've got it. So doctors make a lot of money. I think that's what I'll be. So I took 1 year of pre-med. Freshman biology was all it took for me to say, I don't think so. I had a book this thick, weighed 40 pounds, and they said, hey, memorize every cell structure in the world. And I was like, I want to rebuild a small block Chevy. I don't know about cell structure, so that's out. I'm done with that. So that was not for me. So I thought back, what do I like to do? As a kid, before I got to school, what did I like to do? Well, I had toys like these, right? Anybody this is probably not my best work. Actually, my son built this. These are Legos, right? And we all had a set of Legos. Did you love building stuff? I rebuilt lawnmowers. I built go-karts. I put an engine in my dad's truck. Anything I could get my hands on to build. My grandfather had a wood shop. I was interested in tools and how to build stuff. So that's what I enjoyed doing. So that's why I picked engineering. You see some pictures on this next slide here, and it has pictures of some of the toys that I had when I was a kid. You see Legos there. You see lawnmower engines taken apart. And you see an engine coming out of the back of a 67 El Camino, greatest car ever made. And actually, that was my first car, and I still have it. So since 1983, I've owned that El Camino, and it's awesome. That's why I said, I think I want to go be an engineer. So I completed an engineering degree with honors. Thank you very much. And I emailed out 400 resumes. And guess how many job offers I got? 0. So now what do? Well, I got an offer from National Institute of Occupational Safety and Health to go back to grad school. So I said, okay, if you're going to pay me, I'll go to grad school. So now I've got a master's degree. It only took me 3 semesters to get it, so that was fast. Now everyone will want to hire me, right? Well, not really everybody, but I did wind up finding a job at a local company doing military contracting. So my first job was a military hardware contract engineer. And we worked producing things like steam cleaner units for the military, for field service of heavy equipment, lubrication units, kitchen units, but mainly field service units. So if you've ever been in the military contracting business, it's kind of scary because when those contracts are up, the contract is only for a certain number of units. But once that contract is up, the job is over with. And so when we reached the end of the contract, however many units we were producing, they laid off everybody except for me and a shop manager. And it was my job to get the next contract in order, and then they would go back and hire everybody else. I was getting paychecks and they were saying, hey, don't cash that till next week. Hold that money until we get, I mean, we were in a bad situation. And I thought, this is not the place for me to be, okay? So I tried to get out of the contracting business as quick as possible. You can see here on the next slide a couple of pictures of some of the units that we built. On the left would be a steam clean unit, and on the right there is a picture of one of the lubrication units, the trailer mounted lube units. So I found a new job as a manufacturing engineer at an injection molding plant, okay? And it was here in Lubbock, Texas, where Texas Tech is located. It had a better pay structure. I didn't have to wait to go to the bank to cash my checks. They were ready to go when I got them. Of course, the first paycheck I got, all the guys in the office came and wrote on my paycheck, do not cash until next Tuesday. Very funny. Okay, gave me a heart attack. I thought, what if I got myself into again? When I started that job, there were 400 employees at that company. Every molding machine, when it would make parts, somebody would slide the door open, take the part out, slide the door closed, it would make another part. Our job was to go in and automate that and put robots on every machine with end-of-arm tooling to do any secondary operations to get the part out of there, to have consistent cycle times. And we took that plant from 400 people to 125 people doing the exact same amount of work. So I was on a 4-man automation group that went and automated that plant and took that labor complement from 400 down to 125. So we made parts, as you can see here on the screen, for the consumer industry, things that you can buy at Walmart and Target, for the Christmas, mainly for Christmas, which was tree stands and suction cups, shingle tabs. Matter of fact, the shingle tab was invented in Lubbock, Texas, and we produced parts for the inventor. They started at our company, and I was the plant manager of that plant. We also made automotive parts. We're probably best known for making bearing components, and then we also made parts for the telecommunications industry. So here's some examples of some of the interesting parts we made. Here's a couple of bearings. These are tiny, okay? These are bearings for TRW. These actually are bearings in your seat belts on your car. And so, and then these are some small little retainers. These are actually go in the U-joint of your car, little pieces here. And then we made fun parts like this. This was a pig out pumpkin. This is a blow molded pumpkin with poppets on it. And as your candy bucket got full, you could pull him and expand your candy bucket. But we made all kinds of holiday parts in my factory. So after 8 years, I had worked my way up to plant manager. I had 82 people working under me, and I thought, everything is going great, right? And the boss calls me in one day, says, hey, we got to have a talk right quick. And I said, okay, what you got? You're laid off. I said, what? Why would you, what's going on? Well, we've decided that engineers make too much money. We had reduced the labor from 400 employees down to 125. And they said, you know what, the plant's running great right now. Our margins are as good as they've ever been. And so we think that we don't need engineers as on staff anymore. And so they laid all the engineers off, and they just handled everything that we had built with a maintenance crew. And so there I was out of a job in one day. And I thought, this is the worst thing that could ever happen. How am I supposed to support my family? I had a 1-year-old baby and my wife, and how am I supposed to support my family when I don't have a job? This is the worst thing ever. So I was unemployed again. So one day, while we were going back home for Christmas break, I told my wife, we were driving home, I said, you know what, I think I want to get a PhD. And she said, why in the world would you want to do that? And I said, I don't know. I'm tired of getting mail that says Dr. Miss Hanson and Jeff Hanson. And so I want a title too. I don't even know why, but the company would pay for half of it. So I'd been working at the molding company and they had paid for half my tuition the whole time I was doing that. So I was pretty well along into a PhD program when I got laid off, which is really another word for getting fired. So I really believe this was a blessing in disguise. At the time, I thought it was the worst thing ever, but it turned out to be the best thing that ever happened to me at that time. Now I have more time to pay attention to my school, pay attention to my family, and I need to find a new job. So it turns out it wasn't that bad. The next day, I got asked to join the family business and went into work for my wife's dad, which gave me tremendous flexibility to do whatever I needed to do for school, and gave me pay right away the next day. So I never skipped a beat. I didn't think about that industry, but there I was as a sales engineer. So I have a question for you. Do you believe things happen for a reason? I do. Let me tell you this. So working at my new job, I have to do a job for a local community college. It's called South Plains Community College. And I'm putting in some pallet rack and things in their diesel tech center. And the dean of the College of Engineering happens to be over there, and we get to talking. And he says, "Oh, you're working on a PhD." And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "So you must already have a master's degree." And I said, "Well, certainly I do." And he said, "Well, then you could teach for us." And I was like, okay, yeah, right. I had never, ever considered being a teacher, ever. And he said, "Well, I'll call you sometime. I'll get you a class." He said, "Could you teach engineering graphics?" And I said, "Yeah, I use AutoCAD all the time at work. And so I don't know why I couldn't teach that. I'll give it a try. Yeah, but whatever." So that was the end of the conversation. I didn't think I'd ever hear from that guy again. Well, a year later, the guy calls me and says, "Hey, I got a class for you, a night class out at one of our branch campuses, and we want you to teach engineering graphics." And I was like, okay. And so there I was. Suddenly, there I was teaching engineering graphics. Yeah, that says 2007. That's about the last year that I taught that. This was my last textbook, actually. I was so nervous, y'all. Here I was teaching a class. I've never taught a class before. Why would anybody want to listen to me? I don't know what I'm doing. But it didn't take me long to figure out that I knew more than those students did. And then it didn't become so nervous. And they really caught on to what I was saying, and they really liked me as a teacher. And that made the whole thing so much easier to do. And so I loved it more than anything else. And so there I was. I think this is a new career path that I want to pursue. So in the fall of 2007, bam, PhD, baby. Got her finished. And before I left the university, the industrial engineering department offered me a job teaching a class. So I had my regular job. I had another job really selling eBay parts. And now I had another job teaching class. So I was very excited to be teaching class at Texas Tech University. That's a Division I school. That's a big deal. This isn't community college stuff. This is the big leagues. So the day before the semester started, I was just cruising through the building, getting my class assignments, whatnot. And I went by the mechanical engineering department and I said, "Hey, let me give you a resume." And so I dropped off my resume to a guy in the ME department and I went back over to my office. But by the time I got to my office, he had called me up on my iPhone 10. No, not my iPhone 10, my iPhone 1. Look at that. That's an iPhone 1. It's tiny. Here's the 10. It still powers up though. And they said, "Hey, we got a position open. We had somebody coming from another country. They couldn't work their visas out. And we need somebody that can teach senior design in mechanical engineering and statics starting tomorrow. Can you do it?" Now, this is an important lesson for you guys right here, because I said, heck yeah, I can do it. I hadn't had statics since 1988. But I found one of the other guys that was teaching. My class was on Tuesday, Thursday. Another guy was teaching on Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So I'd sit in his class and then teach my class the next day. So the first time I was always one day ahead of the students. But I learned it. I went through it. The students loved it. And the rest is history. Would I be doing this job if I hadn't been able to find a job when I got my undergraduate degree? The answer is no. The job economy at that time was really bad. And if I would have found a job, I would have gone to work. I promise you that. Because there was zero on my radar about being a professor at university. It was not even on there. I don't know that I'm smart enough to do that. So the whole point of this conversation is, how do you find your dream job? The first thing you have to do is you have to be intentional about that. You have to sit down and ask yourself, what is it that I like to do? Is it robotics? Is it airplanes? Is it cars? Is it the medical industry? Is it whatever it is? Go pursue that field, because what you want to do is, with whatever you do, be happy with what you're doing. The first job I took was just the only job I could find. It wasn't what I had planned out. But times are different now. There's job fairs. There's the internet. We didn't have the internet then. Well, we did, but not that you could access. And so things are different now. And if you are intentional about thinking about what it is you want to do, you'll be better off choosing your career path, because life is short. You don't want to go to a job every day that you hate doing. You've got to go do something where you can make a difference in the world. We're only here for a certain number of days. So what are you going to do to make a difference while you were here for other people? Remember to put yourself in a position for future success. And I'm going to show you a few things that are going to help you do that. Number one, whatever you do, I don't care what it is, do the best job that you can possibly do at that job. Every year as a professor, I get feedback from the students. There's a lot of positive, but there's some negatives. And I look at those and I say, how can I do this job better? Once you quit caring, you stop doing that, it's just downhill from there. So I still feel like I learn something new every single year that I teach class. Even though I teach the same class over and over and over, it gets better and better and better every time I do it. If your company asks you to stay late, then you stay late. You always volunteer for overtime. If there's a project that has to get out the door, you stay late and do it. Don't think that you're going to be there from 8 to 5 every day. Those people are the ones that will never advance. You're going to be in a closet somewhere designing gears for the rest of your life. You're never going to advance up the ladder through management, because once they ask you to do something and you say, no, I don't think so, then they don't ask you again. You're out. But if you're the guy that's always there, that's dependable, we can ask him for anything. He does whatever we need. Let's get him on this project. Let's get him. And I can't tell you how many people in the industry that I've talked to that said, CEOs of companies that said, I'm the CEO because I said, yeah, I'll go do that job when no one else wanted to do it. So volunteer for those jobs when they ask you to do it. Don't say no. Be sure that you're the first one there every day, and be sure you're the last one to leave. Show up early, leave late. If you're there from 8 to 5, it tells them exactly how much you care about what's going on. And you won't have to do that for your whole career, but when you're young and able to, that's what's going to help you advance up the ladder and get you into a position where you don't have to do that every day. But when you first get out of school, you got to be killing it every single day. Finally, you may not think it's important now, but keep working on your education. Throughout your career, keep pursuing an education. Because when I got a master's degree, I did not want to get a master's degree. And if they said, what would you do with that? I don't have any idea what you do with a master's degree. And then I wanted to get a PhD. What do you need that for? I don't know, just so I can have it. I don't know. The company's paying for it. I'm just getting it for just because. But that opened up a door for me that I didn't even know existed. And so you don't necessarily know what your whole plan is. You know, wish we had life mapped out, but we just don't know what's coming down the road. But you want to be putting yourself in a position where you're set up to take advantage of that opportunity when it does come knocking. Finally, let's talk about networking. And I know you've seen a lot about networking, but develop good networks, because you never know when you're going to need a job or when you're going to need something, and you're going to know who has that and who can help you out. When you're at events, get people's business cards and then know something about them. Learn their name, learn something about what they do, where they're from, something personal about them. And then later on, a couple days later, send a follow-up email saying, man, it sure was good to see you at that event. And I really learned a lot from you, and I look forward to seeing you again. That little connection is important, because again, you never know when you're going to have to call on one of those networking connections down the road. So I hope this has been helpful. I hope it's been interesting to see exactly how you get from here to there, at least my journey. Your journey is certainly going to be different. And I hope that yours is great. I hope yours is better than mine. Mine's pretty good. I love going to work every day because I love seeing you students every day. I can't believe they pay you to go do this. That's what I want you to find as a job where when you show up, you can't believe they pay you to come do this. It's fun because when I show up to work, it's 5 o'clock before I can say don't do it. The day goes so fast when you're enjoying what you're doing. When you don't enjoy it, you're like watching the clock. Is it time to go home? Is it time to go home? The life's too short for that. You don't need that. So again, if y'all have any questions or you want to reach out to me, feel free to hit me up on the email there. Follow me on YouTube, on Instagram, and I look forward to seeing y'all down the road somewhere. Thanks.